Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Euros 2024 pod of the FPL Wire, where we discuss groups A, B, and C. I'm your host, Zofa, and I'm joined by my co hosts, Lateriser and Pras. How's the break been, guys?
LR has been doing a lot of research, man. I'm really impressed. He's been like digging into all articles and like I thought we'll do like this chill, 6 videos, but I'm really impressed. I've been complete snooze mode. So LR, how are you?
It feels a little like old school sort of FPL, right? Because there's not as much abundance of information available in this game compared to with prime time FPL, right? So I've enjoyed just reading, etc. I mean, I am researching everybody else's research is essentially what I've been doing. The guys at UFA Fantasy Pod, Ed, Dan, and Louis have been doing a great job. Scout's been doing some great team previews. There is FPL Discomfort who's been doing some good work, FPL Sui who's been doing some nice threads. So just reading the community's work has been fun, and I'm really looking forward to the Euros. Right now, my research is so lopsided. If you ask me about anything Group D to F, I know zilch, nada. But there's a decent amount of information in there for Group A to C, and I'm willing to share it with everybody, and we're here to have some fun, man. What's up with you?
Pras?
No, I've been just chilling, man. After the break, it's been actually work has been busy, and I had sort of back-ended a lot of meetings and a lot of stuff after the season, so that's been busy. And yeah, looking forward to the Euros more actually for the England chances of winning than the Euros content. But I think it's a case of the way you play, you learn about other teams, and then you enjoy the neutral matches as well. So looking forward to it a lot.
And plus, you have to share the news
What
with
is
us
off?
before to the pod. No, we have to break the Pras news first.
We're not breaking any news.
Our
I mean,
demographic craves it. Come on, Pras. Tell them.
but there's nothing to share. It's just I have laser eye surgery next week, so there will be no more nerdy glasses from next week, but the analysis will stay the same.
That's it. Subscriber
Why don't
count,
you?
LR,
Why
through the
don't
roof.
through the roof? I mean, I think the 30K goal is going to be hit in probably this pod now that this news has come to our subscriber base.
Some things don't change. New season, but nothing changes.
The season has started yet, technically, but
Speaking of changes, big changes at Zoff's club.
I remember the pod that we did last week, spoke about Pochettino. He's shattered Man
Literally
United.
2 days
It's not
after.
8-3, four things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the manager. The changes, you guys aren't going to be playing Europa League now. You guys are going to be playing Europa Conference League. Your thoughts on that, Zoff?
Yep. Uh, I'm looking forward to going to all these clubs whose names I can't pronounce. Just like we are going to be butchering names on this pod now.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to. I already realized that I probably should have said in the previous video, I should have said Mbappe. I kept going Mappe. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a fun tournament just for like, we could just do like a shout out to Varun. You could just do a highlight reel of all our pronunciations during the whole thing. And you put that shit up on YouTube. And I think that goes viral.
Yep. I've been just busy with
Unfortunately.
house moving. I'm moving house this Friday. So as you can see, there are no curtains and all on the windows. That stuff is all detached now. It's getting ready. Hopefully it'll be up and running before the next pod. But otherwise, just chilling and like you just like sort of researching the other groups. I'm looking forward to playing this tournament, right? Because the timings are so good for us in India, right? The first game starts around 7, like 6:37, right after work. Then you have another one at 9:30 around dinner, then a later one. So I'm going to be watching all these three games. Like, I'm playing this first international tournament, I think, after 2012 now. And you need some engagement, man. I can't be watching like 3 matches every day. Like, obviously, none of us do the betting thing. So you need some sort of involvement, some sort of feel. And we have the potential to have like, 4 new squads in 4 rounds. The way we are looking at the chip strategy and everything. So it's just a bit of fun. I mean, none of us are experts. Not that we are necessarily FPL experts. We're just having a bit of fun. And if you're watching this, you're 50-50 about playing the Euros, play along with us. It's not somewhere like, it's not your overall rank at the end of the season. It's not going to be written on your gravestone like it is in FPL, right? It's all just a bit of fun.
That one will be.
Exactly, man. We're here for fun. We're here for vibes. And literally, it's the first 3 weeks. Like, that definitely determined my chip strategy, more than rank and everything. How do I up my fun during this month of watching Euros? And your first 4 teams that you're going to be making out of the 7 match days are going to be free hit teams. Now, that's not too difficult. So it's fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. So I think, so what are we looking at today? Today, we are looking at A, B, C, and we're going to touch a little bit on the schedule and strategy, right? That's the basic agenda for today.
Yeah, initially, Pras obviously has a helicopter view already for this game as well. So he's going to tell us about game strategy and how do we get into things and what strategy we are thinking of. And then we preview teams from groups A, B, and C.
Cool. So we do the sponsor plug then. We get started.
Let's do it.
Let's first up. Let's see what we have over here. Not Scout, NordVPN. So, as you know, the FPL Wire has partnered with NordVPN. If you're bored of the streaming libraries in your country, with NordVPN, you can access content outside your region, get access to a wider library on your favorite streaming services, and say you're traveling outside your country, you can access your home library content. Have you guys been found anything interesting to watch TV-wise, LR?
There isn't much interesting at the moment. So I'm going back to what I really, really enjoyed. And in case there's viewers out there that haven't seen season 1 and 2 of The Bear, I highly, highly recommend it. In my opinion, that season 2 from The Bear is like a work of art. It genuinely is a masterpiece. Watching it for the second time is also so much fun. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. My wife hasn't seen it, so I'm watching it with her before the new season comes out end of this month. So that's something I've been consuming as content.
What about you, Pras? More
So
Baby
I
Reindeer
watched
repeat?
this. It's really nice documentary on Amazon Prime called 99. I think you should check it out, Zol.
I enjoyed it even as a non-Manchester United fan, to be honest. It was decent.
I mean, honestly, this is when I watched it, I texted LR, like I was genuinely emotional because I lived through all of those, because that was basically the peak of, I was like 18, 17. So basically the peak of sort of following football and becoming a fan. You go through all those moments. It was incredible. But that's not what everybody wants to watch. But the one I'm watching now, I've just started, is Dark Matter on Apple. It's basically this guy who lives multiple lives. He keeps going into a box. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yeah. I'm waiting for it to finish before I dive in.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the one I'm on.
Is it good though? I've heard like mixed reviews about that show.
I've just started the first episode. So far so good. I like this kind of stuff. Like my favorite ever show on Netflix is Dark. That German show. I don't know if you guys have watched it. Like I like that kind of stuff a lot.
I've been watching The Sympathizer. Quite interesting. 7 episodes. That's on HBO. That's one I can recommend. But yeah, now looking forward.
Go ahead. Like I can totally imagine if like Dark season 2 or 3 or whatever comes in, like I would totally subscribe to Explaining Dark podcast from Pras, because it's a pretty complex show.
It's very
Pras
complex.
breaking things down in his he has a innate ability of making really complex, difficult things look so simple. So I think that would be something you could actually do as content that people would subscribe to, man.
Maybe if there's a new season.
Yeah.
So going back to Nord, it also has an efficient anti-malware and anti-spyware protection tool. It highlights any attack and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/the FPL Wire. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Sign up using the link in the description below. Cool, guys. Let's get cracking. First up, let's talk a little bit about where should we start? Just talk about the groups, where we think it's going to end up. Let's start with Group A first.
Let's do game strategy first, I think.
Okay. Game strategy. Okay, cool. I thought we'd do that at the end, but I'm happy to do it either way.
Well, we'll have the fixture ticker in front of us. That might just give us an idea of how to go about this.
So look, I mean, I think what we want to first talk about is the fact that this isn't meant to be a helicopter view like FPL, right? People should play for fun, right? I mean, so I think LR, you did an excellent video on the chips that are available in this game. There's 2 chips that we have, which is Limitless, which is basically free hit without a budget, and a Wildcard. So you mentioned in your pod that basically most people will gravitate towards this strategy of going for playing one of the chips in match day 2 and the other chip on match day 3, which basically means you have 3 free hits in a row. Actually, 4 free hits in a row, because then for your knockouts, you get another wildcard. So that's a great way to play the game. You get a lot of upside. But the problem this year is basically that in the past tournaments, after round of 16, we were given 5 free transfers. And so what happens is, let's say there is a scenario in which, France is knocked out or Germany is knocked out. I won't say England. So if that happens, then you're stuck in that scenario where basically now you have 3 or 4 players from that team, and now they're not even in the tournament. So you have to use all your free transfers in basically fixing those players. So it is insurance. I know Ella is smiling that So I'm not talking about downside only. I'm not only talking about downside. So this is the issue with that strategy where something can happen where either a team is knocked out or worse, by the way, let's say Germany plays England in the round of 16, and this can happen if England comes second in their group. There was a chart that we had which shows the paths. So England could come second, Germany win their group, England play Germany in round of 16. Who will you pick in your wild card? You'll probably avoid both teams because you don't want to end up with a team getting knocked out. So my alternative suggestion for a chip strategy is basically you don't play any chip in game week 2, match day 2. You play a chip in match day 3, and we'll come to why. You then have a free hit for round of 16 because the game gives you a wild card, and then you wild card in the quarterfinal stage because by the quarterfinal stage you have a much better idea of the teams. You have, then you have to sort of take a leap of faith and back some teams, and you have more transfers to fix for upsets. But you still have the same number of free hits, LR, as you would if you played your strategy, except those free hits happen in 1, 3, round of 16 and quarterfinal instead of 1, 2, 3 and round of 16. So it's the same number of free hits. It's just that you've moved the free hit from match day 2 to the quarterfinal, which is the wild card. What do you guys
So what
think
are the
about
what are the cons to this, right? This is insurance, and I completely buy it as a strategy. But like, it's the kind of strategy you would do to secure a top 10K finish, right? Like is that like is
I disagree.
middling
I disagree.
like is middling in this game like something you want to go for? Like I'm not an expert, but it seems like from people that have played this game, from friends that have played this game, people that I've spoken to, the thing is, obviously your opposition gets tougher by the time you hit game week, by the time you hit match day 5, 6, right? Which is the round of 8, the semifinals, etc. From what I've heard and read, those are the games in which the games are slightly more low scoring. You don't really have your hat tricks. You don't really have your braces. It's more about defenders. It's about getting that one player who scored 1 goal. So you try to get 3 or 4 players from the same team so that you get the goal scored from that team. It's more tuned towards that kind of strategy. The teams are much more convergent around the round of 8 by that time. So I just feel like you can't go hat trick chasing, brace chasing. I haven't looked into it too much depth, but the only thing that you mentioned, because if I was to save a chip in the first 3 match days, like the problem with saving a chip in match day 2 is there are a few tricky fixtures.
Yep.
Germany plays Hungary, 2 of the strongest teams in Group 1. Spain plays Italy, 2 of the strongest teams in Group B. England plays Denmark, 2 of the stronger teams in Group C. Then we've got Netherlands versus France as well. So you're sort of not really the thing is there is a good opportunity to swerve these games, unless obviously match day 1 tells us that one team is way stronger than the other, because there are tricky ties in match day 2. If the ties in match day 2 were actually in match day 3, I would be more tuned or willing to play the strategy that you mentioned, because match day 3 actually nicely pairs with match day 1 in terms of the stronger teams having the easier fixtures.
I agree.
The problem with match day 3 is that groups could be decided and rotation could be imminent. Like that's the problem with match day 3.
Resting
because
of players, resting and rotation, right?
Exactly.
So that's the pros and cons in this.
Absolutely. So I think you've called out the cons completely. So in match day 2, you will have to not use a chip, because I feel you'll have to use a chip in game week 3, match day 3. I have to keep getting used to match day. Match day 3, you have to use a chip because invariably somebody is going to be qualified, or there is going to be rotation or injuries. This is a small tournament. So I think for 3, you have to plan, even though fixtures wise, you're absolutely correct that ideally you play it in 2. So I do get what you're saying, and there is no right answer here. But what I'm trying to say is that if you can target teams. So first, let me talk about this chart that we're showing here. One thing to note is basically you have 6 groups of 4 teams, 24 teams. 16 are going to qualify for the next round, which means that you will have pretty much all the teams still playing in round of 16, right? So in round of 16, when you have a wild card, you have pretty much a fair, you can select anyone. So we don't really need a wild card, but the game gives you a wild card. I think when you really need a wild card is actually quarterfinals, because they might be upsets. So things might happen. So what I'm trying to basically say is this wildcard in game week 16 or round of 16, you can also use for that upside free hit kind of thing. Let's say England is playing Germany. Then you don't get any of their players because it's a knockout. You basically get players from all the easier teams, because easy matchups will still happen in round of 16. Like I said, 4 of the teams that are going to finish third in their group are still going to be in round of. So all I'm saying is I'm taking your upside from match day 2 and I'm taking that upside in round of 16 because I have converted that into a free hit, and I'm using the wildcard a little bit later for some insurance, and I'm giving up some good fixtures or harder fixtures. For example, I'll have to have Mbappe against Netherlands, which I would question if people are on limitless, they might have Mbappe anyway.
Anyway, yep.
So that's the dilemma. I will load up on teams. So if you go to the fixture ticker now, if I look at match day 1 and you basically have to target teams with match day 1 good fixture and match day 2 good fixture. That's Germany, England, I think Belgium, and to an extent France. You look at drafts, I think people have Portugal. 10 players from these teams. Even and Portugal.
Ukraine is also...
Ukraine is great as well, but their players are not that high. So I'm telling you, a lot of people have 10, 11 players from these teams anyway. All it needs is a change of mindset to say, do I really need to then free hit or limitless in match day 2 when I can have all this upside in round of 16? It's just a school of thought. I don't want to change people's mind, but that's where I am thinking now.
I'll just add to this. I think there is, like, if you want to go ahead with the strategy, like the way I would do it is weigh match day 1's fixtures 80% and weigh match day 2's fixtures about 20%. Because what match day 2 is also going to present to us is a bucket load of information. We are going to be watching the match day 1 games, and we'll want to react based on what we've seen in the match day 1 games in terms of the players that we want to really pick for match day 2. So that is also an important piece. Right now we are going off information that we've read. We've not really seen these international players as much. I'm talking about somebody like me who's not seen the highlights, etc. I will be watching the match day 1 games. So I will see that there is this one player, let's say Musiala, for example. Everybody's got Wirtz and Gundogan, but Musiala is the one getting the chances. He's the one in this tactical system that tends to get the chances. I want to pick him for match day 2. Like that is also the information that you will act on in match day 2.
So what you're saying is keep it open, go 80% with an open mind, and do heavily. I think that's a great shout. shout. Like you can still have an Italian player, even if, because DiMarco is such a good value that you might do that anyway. And then if you play Spain, so be it, man. I mean, it's okay to have an Italian defender playing Spain. If you choose not to, I think that's a good summary of sort of how you can hedge yourself and go like that.
And you're anyway getting to hedge anyway, right? Because you're playing essentially with a squad of 15. You are not playing with a team of 11 in this team. So you're getting enough insurance to hedge anyway.
Correct.
And you get 2 transfers.
I think that's the consensus in the chat also seems to be you don't need to wildcard match day 2. Most players are decent anyway.
Yep. Right. Cool. I think that's enough on chip strategy. And that's
we'll keep, like you said, keep an open mind. Once we review like game week, obviously not using a chip in the first weeks, we can always be flexible as we see.
Exactly. And it also plays into how we want to play, right? I mean, I think let's also spend a moment on this. Like we play FPL super seriously. I play FPL in a way where every move needs to be right in my head. Even if I'm chasing that rank, I have to captain Haaland in game week 30. Not because I'm scared of Haaland, because I think that's the right choice. I think these tournaments give you a little bit of a chance to play a little differently, not completely rogue, but play a little differently. Like in our post-mortem show, we were discussing about how we can change our style a little bit. So I think that also plays into chip strategy in terms of your game week 1 draft. Do you want to really pick the team that is the whole of Twitter has? That's also something to think about.
Yeah. Also, just wanted to shout out Milanista, who did a nice little article on Scout. And one micro point that he mentioned when it comes to strategy is that when you're sort of managing in-game also, there's scope if you have like Mbappe and a Portugal player and Kane coming as captains on day 3, day 4, and day 5. There's enough scope to experiment with your captains on day 1 and 2 and try to hit that differential captaincy haul, which nobody else might. So even there, where we have stronger captains coming in later as insurance, you can experiment with your captains on day 1 and day 2. That's also something that could come into your thinking.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Let's start with Group A, guys.
Yes, I think let's start with the hosts, Germany.
So obviously they didn't play any qualifying matches being the host. Under Nagelsmann, they have 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses from their friendlies. But the team seems a little bit unsettled, right? In terms of the numbers, I'm seeing goals per game, goals conceded. It's not what I've always visualized Germany in international tournaments, right? You had your Kloses, Podolskis, they always stepped up in the big stage. You always expect that Germany, semi-final stage is almost a guarantee. It doesn't feel like that with this current German outfit, does it?
I don't know, man. I'm pretty optimistic about them. I feel like they're at the end of the transition phase where there's a lot of new young players coming into this team. Marco Reus has retired. We used to have Podolski who used to play. Klose used to play. Those guys are not there. Timo Werner in the middle phase. The likes of Musiala and Wirtz are very highly rated in the world football ecosystem at the moment. So, and Musiala, Wirtz is the player of the Bundesliga. He's had 11 goals, 11 assists this season as well. Uh, and Kai Havertz himself has had a really good second half of the season for Arsenal also. So I think there is enough strength and depth, and they're the home team, and we've seen what the atmosphere is in when it comes to the Bayern Munich games and the Dortmund games that we've seen. So I think the home effect will come into play, I reckon, when it comes to Germany. And I personally rate Nagelsmann as a coach. I genuinely think he's a good manager. He's sort of had a settled front six at least in his setup in the last few games. So, that could be interesting.
Let's start with defense. I think the most popular options I'm seeing are Tar and Mittelstadt, the 4 million left back. I think he seems to be in almost every team. Is he a bit of a no-brainer pick?
I mean, Mittelstadt is a no-brainer pick, to be honest.
It
I mean,
is,
no matter
right?
how
Yeah.
much template-ish you want to talk about, 4 million is the base price of any defender. The guy is playing left back. I mean, quite an attacking left-sided
I think
defender.
most chances created in yesterday's friendly from the entire German team. I think 8 chances of 5. I don't remember.
And I saw the highlights. He's very, very attacking. He's up there. And his responsibility and Kimmich's responsibility to hold the width, because both Musiala and Wirtz tend to play in the half spaces. So these guys actually act as the wide men in that setup. And he was really, really far up the pitch. So sort of a no-brainer. It's a non-questionable pick because you will need cheap players. I think you should not think about whether you want Mittelstadt or not.
Yeah. The other options are Rudiger and Tar. I think Tar is 4.5 million, but I think once you go for Mittelstadt, probably won't go for the other guys. In midfield,
I mean, you can
double
get
up?
those off. You can double up. Why not? I mean,
Fair
if you
enough.
look at it in isolation, if Mittelstadt didn't exist, then everybody would have
4.5
Tar.
million for a German centre back, and Tar is still good value.
Exactly. So I think
Second
it is a viable
highest-
strategy.
Second highest clean sheet odds amongst all teams in matchday 1 are Germany. Italy is 60% and Germany is number 2 at 49%. So a double up in German defense is certainly viable. And from the highlights, he's also one of those guys who seems to get on the end of things. He's quite a big lad, has quite the presence. And also I think his ball recovery data was pretty strong, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely an interesting pick.
Move to midfield and attack.
Yeah, Kimmich is overpriced a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, before we go there. So yeah, I think midfield is where it's at, but also that a lot of rotation, like not rotation, but minutes being curtailed. Either that was because of friendlies or just that's how Nagelsmann likes to do things. But a lot of these guys none of them have like a 90-minute man, right?
Yeah. Mittelstadt and Tar are something that you don't have to worry about. Midfielders, yes, there could be rotation because there's a ton of options.
Correct.
Gundogan
The
seems pretty
data that
mid
we
from what I've
have,
read,
Tar
right?
is actually is up there when it comes to ball recoveries per 90. When it comes to club football or UCL, it's worth mentioning that for every 3 ball recoveries, you get 1 point. So if there are people and players that tend to show a high ball recovery rate, it's worth going for because it's a high floor. You get 2 extra points for ball recoveries if they're going to get 6. So Tar is up there when it comes to ball recovery data as well.
So one point I wanted to make on this ball recovery thing. So I think what it does is it makes center backs appealing compared to full backs or wing backs. So I think that adds an element to it. But what I don't like is when people are considering midfielders, they add ball recovery. Like, have we ever said Rodri has 1 clean sheet point, so we should consider Rodri over Gordon because Newcastle defense is not great? We never do that, even though we know Rodri's clean sheet chances are much higher. So I feel like that is used a little bit as a narrative to buying Rodri because of ball recovery. So I feel centre back versus full back, it has closed the gap. I really like it, but midfield I don't like it at all as a stat.
I guess it depends
I'll
on the
just
kind of player,
diverge a
right?
little.
Go ahead.
But people are picking Rodri just not because of ball recoveries.
Obviously
Penalties,
penalties. Yeah, but I just
Penalties?
used him as an example.
Yeah. Long shot, extra point as well. We know he likes the bang off from outside the box
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
and I think it
Right.
makes a difference for there's a couple of guys I've seen who are at 5 million. For example, if you're going at absolute bargain basement, then that's probably your differentiator, right? The guy who gets more ball recoveries versus not.
Sure, but what I'm trying to say is what it adds to your flow, right? So what you're trying to say is my defender will get 4 points now instead of 3 because everyone has 3 ball recovery. Most good players will have 3 ball recovery. So you're basically talking about one player who will get 6 versus one who will get 3. So it's 1 point. And you're playing a game in which you're going to sub players out. So let's say your Germany Mittelstat gets 3 points. He concedes and he got 4 ball recoveries. You probably still will sub him out. So a higher floor isn't as relevant here. It is a little relevant, but not as relevant in a game in which you'll sub them out anyway. So clean sheet is way more important as a thing. Like I'd rather have 2 double Italian defense if I can afford it than a defender who has lower clean sheet odds, but 2 times the ball recovery.
Just talking strategy also while you guys are talking, it almost makes sense that if you're going to go for a Rodri type of a pick, then you go for him if he's playing day 1, day 2, or day 3. Because if he's got a high floor and if he's got a penalty, and if you got a penalty and if you got 2 ball recoveries, cool, stick with him. But you're not going to probably sell like a sub out a 4 point to take a chance on a Rodri. So I think if that Rodri type pick plays in the first 2-3 days, strategically that would probably make more sense.
Yeah,
Great
it's a
point.
great point.
Yeah.
Talk midfielders.
Cool. So from midfield, I'll take this one. I've generally looked into data, numbers, etc. Out of at least Group A, B, and C, it's Group A that has a nice variety of genuinely good attacking midfielders who are fairly well priced. Like there aren't many good midfielder picks in the game. This group has a fair few of them, and Germany especially, all 3 of them are pretty decent. Midfielder picks. Whether you're talking about Musiala, who sort of plays like a left striker, whether you're talking about right striker, whether you're talking about Wirtz, who's playing as a left striker, whether you're talking about Gundogan, who plays as the 10 in this team. Hassan is a long-time follower and admirer of Germany from our Discord, and I was talking to him on the Discord this morning, and he's like, Gundogan is on the precipice of the team. Like if he doesn't play well, he could get subbed by the time 60 minutes come. That said, I don't want to lie about my gut. I feel like Gundogan in big tournaments is sort of like a clutch player. He tends to do well. Even yesterday, he had a chance from a point-blank header. He tends to find himself in the right spaces. So, one other thing about Germany is we're going to get to see the starting 11. It's the only team, apart from Scotland, that we're going to see the starting team. I think if Gundogan I see starting, I might take a punt there. Generally, if I see him starting as a number 10.
7 million. Decent price.
7 million.
7 is very good price. And he could, like you said, on penalties, right?
Yes.
Exactly, on penalties. The thing about Wirtz is that he's on all corners as well. So in addition to him having genuine goal and assist threat, he's on corners as well. So for 7.5 million, that's not too bad.
So I think pretty much everyone will have to have one German midfielder because you want a captain on Friday, right? Unless you want to captain Mittelstat or Ta, you want a captain who has some upside.
Or you have a Havertz.
Exactly. So you'll either basically be looking at a Wirtz, a Gundo, or a Havertz, or a combination of even 2 of them. But you will have to have one, which is why it merits a little bit of discussion. But we are a little bit shooting in the dark. Like I don't like Havertz because he's a forward, and I feel like I like Lukaku a lot more. Or there's other options that I think are slightly better.
Yeah, more
especially if Havertz
talismanic. Because ultimately we never associate Havertz necessarily with a lot of goals. His role is not the same role as he's playing in Arsenal. Here he's more of a facilitator, right?
Correct. So price is great. So
but he's a changed man.
Havertz. He is changed.
He's in form.
This is not Arsenal, though. I mean,
but he's a changed man. He's in form. Like even yesterday, he was the spirit of the attack. I'll tell you that. Based on highlights, he was the spirit of the attack. Majority of the chances fell to him. He was in the center of the box for every chance, whether it was created from the left or the right. So I want to mention that. That the only thing that what I've read about Havertz is that if he doesn't have a good game, there's Fulkrug and there's another guy as well, I forget his name, who could get subbed in at the 60th minute mark. So there could be limited minutes. So I think if you're punting on Havertz, I think match day 1 is the right time to punt, because he's in good form. So it depends on what your vibes are about Havertz. That's all.
The thing is, because the forward spot, pretty much Kane and Mbappe will be locks, right? So it's the third spot, which is a bit of a differentiator.
Correct.
Exactly.
I mean, in that, you're probably going to go CR9, right? For the third one. Depends.
No, it depends if you want to go cheap.
Yeah. It all again priced out Lukaku. There's so many other options he's competing with.
There are a few cheap sort of defenders that strikers that I like for the third spot too. Same. Like you mentioned, Kane and Mbappe are locks.
But in general, from what I've noticed, go ahead.
That Nagelsmann in March did get wins over France and Netherlands. So recently, they seem to have improved, and getting, whether it's friendlies or UEFA Nations or whatever, wins against Netherlands and France are pretty big. So I just wanted to throw that in. Go on, Zoff.
Now, I was just saying that general, I have noted down here that they don't have a clear talisman in Germany, from what I can tell.
Correct.
That's what you're
Because
always
all
looking
four
for,
are
right?
capable of
Fantasy
points.
games. Exactly. Because what we are looking in fantasy games, you want one guy where it'll all go through. I couldn't find any one particular player for that. And that seems very Nagelsmann-esque to me. Also, like, it's more system driven.
Correct.
Agreed. I mean, and maybe it's one of those clear cases where somebody may emerge, right? I mean, we don't know yet, and with form, with another injury, or like Gundo could, once you get form, then that also determines your minutes, right? Right now, we're shooting in the dark a little bit. Like I've seen people say, even Gundogan shouldn't start, even Fulkirk should start, and Havertz plays the 10 or something like that. So if nobody's safe. Sane is sitting there, right there, who could play instead of Musiala. I think Wirtz is the only one who you can sure shot, and maybe Havertz say that they will start. Of course, we will see the lineup, but if you couldn't see the lineup, I mean, those two are the completely, and maybe even Gundo actually.
Yeah.
Because you want to
but
keep
play
the option
most
open
minutes.
to pick them in match day 2 as well, like you guys were discussing. So you obviously want to pick a nailed player.
Yeah. I'm not going to go with picking a nail player. If I see him starting, I'm definitely using a chip in match day 2. So I don't have any of those
Yeah.
insurances
Fair enough.
required. But I do want to say that anybody has spoken to that watches the Bundesliga rates Wirtz very, very, very highly. Like a genuine goal scorer. And you don't get best player in the Bundesliga without doing that well. So wanted to mention that also.
Move on to Scotland.
Yeah, it's a good thing to mention, because we are also talking matchups out here, right? Because if you're talking just about match day 1, then we have to look at goal scoring potential and opposition defense also.
Correct.
Now, Germany, if I'm talking about that, they are third for predicted goals in match day 1. They're 2.7 goals behind only England and France. So they do seem like they could have goals based on Scotland. Scotland recently in a friendly lost 4-0 to Netherlands. You might think that they're pretty organized, etc., but losing 4-0 to Netherlands in a recent friendly is something of certain. For Scotland, generally started really well. They secured their qualification, and since then their form has nosedived, and they haven't won in the last 7 games, is what I've read, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what Scotland's thing is.
But I'll just read out the record now from qualifying. It's 5 wins, 2 draws, 1 losses. That's 17 goal scores, 8 goal against. And we all know who the talisman is, Arash. Your boy McTominay.
Yeah, man,
7
Scott
goals.
McSauce.
7 goals in
Turned into
qualifying.
prime Frankie Lampard for Scotland.
6.5 million.
And watching him for United, I'll tell you that he's a genuine goal threat. Like, he's good at heading the ball. He's good at finishing as well. So if they're going to use him in that role, then fair enough. But I just think I'd take that chance match day 2, right? Match day 1 is against Germany. So
that's exactly it. A lot of people would have him if he had played the other 2 teams in match day 1. This is the only issue. That 6.5 is a good price for him.
Yeah. But price
Even
for an enabling one.
McGinn is not bad as well. I mean, he's fairly
a penalty
attacking.
Taker.
He's penalty taker, fairly attacking. I mean, both him and McTominay are decent picks.
And Robertson, from a few people I mentioned that even he's a decent pick because he might play as wing back. What I've read is that against tougher opposition, they tend to play 3 at the back.
Yep.
So Robertson plays as wing back, which is quite attacking. But again, you don't want to take that chance against Germany. Germany are generally known to be prone on the counter though. But still, it's just a pick I'm not going to make match day 1.
They don't have a striker is the problem. Like Scott, I mean, this obviously helps McTominay and McGinn. Like what is it? Adams and Dykes, one of those guys will start. There is no person there who you can get. Otherwise, that would be a cheap enabler. Like going forward, if we know who's the guy starting.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention, the chat is mentioning, is we are not thinking about man of the match. So man of the match in this game gets 3 points, and they're talking about picks like Gundogan, picks like Rodri are very much capable of being man of the match also. Picks like Toni Kroos, for example, if you're going for a low floor, low price pick, are capable of being man of the match and getting you 3 points as well. So it's just something to think of in terms of trying to pick the best player also is odds on to become man of the match.
That's a good shout.
Yeah. I think that's actually Scotland.
I should say I was just using Rodri as an example. Chat has taken Rodri quite personally. Rodri is a good pick, guys. If you know me playing FPL, Rodri is my kind of pick, so I'm not picking on Rodri.
Yep. Move on to Hungary.
Cool.
Hungary play a back 5, 1-5, drawn 3, 2 goals per game and on average, 0.8 goals conceded. But they had an easy group in qualifying from what I've read. Apart
I
And they
and I think what
At work, there's
Soboslai.
a guy
Hmm.
who sits next to me. He's Hungarian, and I was telling him, so I'm picking Sabosla in my team, and he's like, "Don't touch us. We're really bad." And basically, the Hungarian fans, maybe we as neutrals think they're better than they are because in Hungary they're not too optimistic about them. Yeah, and I think Sabosla is the pick,
I
right? I
mean,
mean,
I think they'll
there's
finish second
also
in this group.
they could, they could, but I'm just feeling that it's not as clear cut who the second team is in this group.
Yeah. With Soboslai, you get the extra point for long range goals, right? In this format. So that adds a lot to it. But there's no ball recoveries there. So you don't get that. But I think the other upside is good enough.
And all set
and he's a
pieces.
talisman. He's
Four
genuinely the
goals,
talisman.
5 assists in 8 qualifying matches.
Yeah, and in the Nations League, only Soboslai took more shots from set pieces than Eriksson. So he was the highest for shots from set pieces as well. And he's got a banger in him. Like his reputation precedes him because of his performances against Hungary. And also from what I've read, they're a very attacking team. They tend to play front foot. And it seems that it's quite clear that Switzerland is the weakest team in this group. We are known to associate them with having a sturdy, sort of strong, almost like the Burnley of Euros. But they seem to have aged and are not as good as they used to be. So I think Soboslai Group A, match day 1 is somebody I'm thinking of genuinely. Penalties as well. Genuine chance to become man of the match as well. So a shout, in my opinion.
Sobo's a good pick from what I can tell.
Sobo is a good. He's a good. I mean, if Eller wants to try this new way of playing with penalty takers and good sensible, high upside picks, I think Sobo fits all those boxes.
He does. He
And
genuinely does.
he has the upside plus he has the penalties.
They have another
Quickly
interesting
taking
pick. What?
Go on, Zoff.
I said they have another interesting pick at left back. I have noted down they have a 4 million starter potentially, and I think Zinagi. I'm trying to butcher all these names or something with Nagi. 4 million.
Nego.
Okay.
So that
He's
could
a
be
right
interesting
back,
as well.
right wing back.
Okay.
The left
He's
wing
a
back is
former-
our boy from Bournemouth, Kirkes.
Oh right, of course. The other side.
Yeah. Yeah, they play 3 at the back. They have 2 wing backs. Both Nego and Kirkes are genuine options because of how attacking are. They tend to get involved in attack as well. And Switzerland are not known for their profligacy in front of goal. They're not known to be goal scorers. So you could chance taking on a Hungarian defender. Let's look at their clean sheet odds for match day 1. 26%. We've got about 7-8 teams in the 30s, 40s. They're at 26%. The bookies are not big fans of Hungary as much as the general hype behind this team seems to be.
This is what I meant when I started with it. That the general neutrals are more high on Hungary than actual fans and bookies and so on and so forth. So I don't think they're clear for the second spot. So, and the problem with Nego is also there's also a couple of other 4 million defenders, right? I mean, we've talked about Mittelstadt. There's also Fais at Belgium, a couple of others. So there is actually value. So you don't need to go for a Hungarian defender.
I mean, 26% is still decent. I think that's what you'd get from Manchester United against Sheffield.
Nearly kept on against Man City.
I like how you bring that in. Also want to mention a couple of other picks that UCL Dan mentioned. He sent us very nicely sent us a sheet with some beautiful data on there. Sly at 4.5 million. He tends to get 5 ball recoveries a game on average. So pretty interesting pick. And then there is Varga, who's a 6 million striker. It's pretty nailed for that Hungary team. So if you think that they're going to be attacking and you're in the market for a cheap striker, Varga at 6 million, he's got 4 goals in qualifying. So that's one of the names that you could probably think of.
Anything else in Hungary? Move on to Switzerland.
Yep.
So they have 4 wins, 1 draw, 5 losses in qualifying. They finished second to Romania. On the face of it, that's quite bad.
They're
in poor form.
The Sommer is expected to be back in goal. He's not been playing recently, but I think the standout pick here is Akanji. At 5 million, he gets 7.5 ball recoveries. But with this fixture list, I guess the only clean sheet you're expecting is against Scotland potentially, and even that doesn't look great.
Yeah, man. I'm not going to take a chance on them early doors. I'll see how they perform. So until then, I'm just not interested. Worth mentioning that Akanji is one of the ball recovery chords in this game if you're looking for a high floor pick. So maybe if they look decent, I would go for him as a pick in match day 2 or 3. I just don't want to take that chance right now. But you could still could, because if he gets a clean sheet and then he gets like 2 or 3 points for ball recoveries, that's an 8-9
And
point
again,
there.
man of the match potential is there, right? I think the guys who are more like at more of these, like, let's say, famous clubs have a bit of a more of a chance to feature in man of the match, because it's being picked by an individual, right? Or is it being picked by votes? I'm not even sure of the system, but popular
It's a
players,
panel, UEFA panel.
so popular players, I think, have bigger chance in that sense.
He's just 5 million is too much, man. I mean, they're the worst team in the group,
Yeah,
and it's
it
not
goes
like
back to what we were talking in the Premier League, right? When you have Botman at 4.5, similarly you have Ta at 4.5. Rather double up over there.
Correct. That's where we are.
And other
Cool.
options, you have Shaka at 6 million. I don't think you're going to go there. They're probably better picks.
Shaqiri 6.5. The guy's still playing, man. He's still there. He plays number 10, I think, right?
Yeah, 2 goals,
and 2 goals and 3 assists.
Qualifying, yep.
Exactly. The thing with, like, if I wanted to take excitement or fun up, like, I don't know if it was the last Euros or the last World Cup, but Embolo really impressed me. And, he seemed like the emerging talent, but he might be injured
or not been playing. Yeah, it's not, because
Amdouni, that's the thing with Switzerland.
6 goals. I think he's the top scorer.
Yeah, but not interested at the moment.
Group predictions, guys. Who do you think? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll go Germany first, and I think they're a little underrated. I think people aren't as hot to them. I think the home thing. Plus, I expect them to be a part of the quarters, at least. Germany, Hungary, Scotland, Switzerland is how I'll go.
That's what I've got it as well.
I'll swap Scotland. Just, a little bit of a UK spirit. So let's say Scotland as well.
Tartan Army second. I like that.
Yeah.
Top 3 picks from the group for you guys?
Probably Middlestat, Soboslai, and Wirtz. No, I'll probably Mixos. But we're not talking purely match day 1, right? We're talking in general.
Tune towards match day 1, because we will be doing a match day 2 pod. So let's tune towards
then
match
add
day 1.
Wirtz instead of McTominay.
I would say Mittelstadt, a German midfielder, TBD. I would like to watch the second friendly. Could be Gundogan, could be Wirtz. And then the third one, Szoboszlai.
Mittelstadt, Wirtz, and Szoboszlai. But I do want to mention there is a little bit of a feeling about Gundo. If he's starting, I think I'll throw him in.
For sure.
Yeah.
Move on to the next group, the group of death.
The best pick in the game, Rodri. We can start with him.
Why don't you tell us your thoughts on Rodri from Spain, Pras?
I mean, he's a great shout, man. Man of the match potential, penalty potential, recovery potential. But I'm not picking him because of recoveries, because of the whole thing, was what my point was. I think that the thing with Spain is they, traditionally we've had a lot of flair attackers that are talisman. And I think last 2-3 tournaments now, it's been a theme where we don't have that. We have Sarabia, Olmo, Morata, a lot of these attackers who we think we can get to, but nobody we can say for sure is like a talisman, plays 90 minutes. So then we're looking at players like Rodri or Grimaldo or as defenders as the picks. And that's where we are on Spain generally.
Yeah, the record in qualifying has been very good. 7 wins, 1 loss, 3.1 goals per game. That's ridiculously good. And only 0.63 goals conceded. So they're definitely a team in form. I'm not familiar with how good their qualifying group was, but go on, Ella. You were saying something?
Yeah, they tend to score goals, but they're a little bit like how Arsenal were maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, how City were when they didn't have Haaland, where the goals were sort of spread and you don't really have a proper talisman in the group. That said, Morata tends to do well when he comes into these major tournaments as well. So if you're looking for a third striker, he could be a pick. My problem with Spain is in match day 1, they play Croatia. And Croatia are actually the proper Burnley big tournament. How many goals is Spain going to put past a Croatia team? Now, there are 2 sides to the story while we're narrating them, right? Like Spain, they're going to be really good and they're going to score 2-3 past Croatia. Or Croatia, who's aging. Or Croatia really do what Croatia do and they don't really concede more than a goal or 2, So that's the narrative. Like, it's not a fixture to target match day 1 with your attackers. That said, Grimaldo, man, he's got 20 plus attacking returns from a wing-back position for Leverkusen this season. And I think I'm willing to chance on him being very attacking, and he could find his way into my match day 1 team just because of sheer nature of how attacking he is.
There's something about his starting position, right, Pras? I think.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Gaia at left back is a competition there.
Correct. In fact, in the qualifiers, Gaia played more more games there. But I think a lot of people are confident because they don't like Gaia.
Yeah.
That Grimaldo will start. We'll see a couple of games. I think Spain play today or tomorrow. So we'll see a couple of games. Grimaldo starting. I think he's great for 5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
from what I
Carva,
read, also he's just much better. He's just much better than every other wingback option as well, And you can't ignore the. And what happens is Carvalho he's on the other side, right? He tends to be the one that sort of stays back in a lopsided back three.
and he's
So
5.5
that
million. The
yeah,
most
so that
expensive
could
defender in
favor.
the game is 6. So for 5.5, Carvajal really doesn't appeal.
Yeah,
It's the
he's good.
Alonso problem. You remember that in 5 at the back, he looks amazing. That's where what Grimaldo plays. But at 4 at the back, he may not be that great. So this is what we don't know. Like because Spain play 4 at the back.
Correct, correct. But if they sort of play like a lopsided back three, then it could work for
And he
Grimaldo as
takes
well.
set pieces also from what I've read.
Correct, correct.
That's a
He's
big part
decent
of
on
his
set.
appeal. So Joselu
Yeah.
might not start, but like you said, Morata probably will. But again, I have another note written over here, no talisman. Like you mentioned, Ella, they spread the goals around a fair bit.
Yeah. That's it. Like if Spain were playing Albania, match day 1, I would have chanced on a Morata. It's just that Croatia doesn't scream like brace hat trick potential. That's where my thoughts lie. Yeah.
Croatia were only 0.5 goals per game conceded in qualifying.
Yeah. Exactly. In terms of other picks that exist in this team, there's the wonder kid Yamal, the Barcelona guy who tends to do really well. I think it was against Brazil in a friendly not too long ago that he really announced himself as well. But he's like a 6.5 million forward. It's just that I don't know how good he is, and I don't want to punt against a Croatian team. That's the only thing. There's Inako Williams or somebody who's a midfielder who tends to have a pretty decent output on the other side. That's another pick. And then you have Pau Torres, and there are 2 out of Lenormand, Torres, and Laporta that are going to be playing. If Lenormand or whatever his name is, played the most number of games in qualifying, and he's a 4.5 million Spanish defender. So just wanted to add that as food for thought for you guys.
I think we'll have a Spanish attacker later in the tournament for sure. Once we know who's the guy who's in form and starting. But at the moment, it feels very, very difficult to guess, and there's no need to go there.
This is by far the toughest group. I think there's no question about it for me.
Yep.
Move on
Cool.
to
Let's
Croatia.
move to. Sure.
So that's 5 wins, 1 draw, 2 loss qualifying. Only 1.63 goals per game, but only 0.5 conceded and 5 clean sheets. So again, what that tells me is a team that controls games, and you can understand with that midfield 3 that they have, right? Your Kovacic, Brozovic, and Modric. But we have our old friend there, Guardiola, who's probably, I think, the most appealing pick at 5.5 million. He's also a ball recovery magnet at 6.63. But again, 5.5 in this group seems a bit high. He's not going to be playing like, your left wing back, left forward. He does for Man City.
If anything, he might play
Spain
as
match
left
day
centre
1.
back.
And Spain match day 1, yeah.
Like that's the thing.
I've watched Croatia both times when they played Wales in their group games. They were not impressive at all. Like I know Croatia, like Denmark, and there's these teams that just show up in tournaments and they just become good again. I just think they're not the same team, and they've been priced as if they're a top 8 side, which I'm not sure, given the group, how hard it is that we need to sort of go there from a fantasy perspective as well. Like there's no defender under 5 million. Their keeper is 5 billion. Their midfielder, like Modric, is the highest in terms of who will start and who will play, but he's going to play DM. Like
Yeah, he's not
okay,
FPL
he might
friendly.
get some return. So I'm not seeing a lot of value here.
I'd agree with that.
Just wanted to mention that Mayer got a brace yesterday, and they won 3-0 against North Macedonia, which is one of the weakest teams in Europe. Perisic was fit because fitness wasn't questioned before coming into the tournament. And Kramaric didn't play as a striker. He played behind the striker as a 10. Just wanted to mention that.
Actually, Mayer would be the one out of all if that somebody really wanted to go there. But I don't know much more about him.
Cool. And I think just not of high interest given they play Spain in match day 1. I think this is a pick that you go into if they impress in match day 1. That's all.
Move on to Italy. 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses in qualifying, 16 goals scored, 9 goals against, which seems quite high for Italy, right? That's over a goal a game. conceded, and I'm seeing the defenders are quite popular. Di Renzo and Di Marco. One is at 5, the other is 5.5. But both very attacking.
See, I'll tell you, when I've been supporting international teams and I've been watching, like I've always gravitated generally between these three teams. You want to support England, but it's just too much hype, especially with us being FPL content creators and we're having so many friends from England. It genuinely is a lot more fun watching
Support
them
your
from.
friends.
It genuinely is you guys are something else, man. When it comes to football, it's genuinely so much fun to sit back and watch you all do your thing. I mean, ideally, you all should win the time. Only France comes close to having the amount of talent that England has, at least in the front six. But I tend to support Italy, Germany, and Netherlands. These are the three teams that I tend to like in these international tournaments. And Italy always tends to punch above their weight when it comes to these tournaments. And it's primarily because of they play with in what I call in Hindi like jusso. There's like a lot of aggression. It's something that you like to see on the pitch, and I think that comes. It's inherent in their DNA, inherent in the fiber, which is why I think I'll probably be doubling up on their defense early on. I think if you're looking for a cheap striker, match day one, there's a punt here. If you want to
Kamaka?
punt on,
Chiesa?
like if you want to punt, like there's a Chiesa, Skamaka, depends, right? It depends on what the friendlies tell us. If because Skamaka had a good end to the league season where he came into form, so there is a chance he could start ahead of, I think the other guy is Petrucci or something. I forget his name. So there's a punt there as if you find a nailed Italian striker because it's the game against Albania, and the odds like Italy. They're top 4 clean sheet odds match day one, and they are predicted to score 2.1 goals in match day one as well. And Albania is by far the weakest team in this group as well. So if you want to take a chance, I think Italy triple up because they come early in the team, and then you have France and Portugal as insurance later on. Is something you can do because they're not really expensive as picks also.
Yeah.
I want to mention that everybody and their grandmother has been talking about Di Marco, who's underpriced at 5 million because he's a wing back who's very attacking on some set pieces as well. So when everybody's talking about it, I don't think you ignore such picks. I think he's going to be heavily owned. His EO is going to be high as well. So you ensure yourself as well early on in the tournament.
So
the new
I
LR
think
already.
exactly. We're all trying new play styles. I think if you're playing, this is where chip strategy actually comes into it before we make our teams. If you're playing a chip after this week, so in match day 2, then Italy triple up becomes a no-brainer. Their easiest fixture is this week, Albania. If you're not playing a chip next week, then because they have Spain, then you can be a little bit more cautious with Italy, maybe just a double up or even one, so just a DiMarco. This is where chip strategy will deviate, and I think an Italy triple up makes a lot of sense if you're free hitting in match day one, is if that's the only team you want, because I think Kamaka as a third striker, even Chiesa, decent. It's Albania, right? I mean, and then DiMarco everybody will have. So if you want Italian defense, they are by far the highest clean sheet odds in match day one. So you want Italian defense, then basically go for a Di Lorenzo as your second guy, or actually there's a chance that you could have a 4 million Cambiaso. Because they have been some injury issues, right? And basically Di Lorenzo could play center back, right center back, and you could have Cambiaso play right wing back. So there is a chance there. Of course, we won't know lineups, but there's a couple of friendlies to see. So there are options there where you can look for a triple up. There's also Jorginho that a lot of people are talking about. I don't think he's completely nailed. I don't think he's definitely on penalties, or maybe he's not on penalties.
He's not on penalties, apparently.
He's not, right?
Apparently, he missed the last 3 or 4, so they might have a new penalty taker. Another shout for somebody like a Skamaka who might just be taking pens.
So there are a few options from Italy. Actually, it's the exciting team if you're looking to triple up and going for upside in game week 1, match day 1.
The midfield option seems
Gianni
quite
also
dull, though,
mentioned
right?
that
ahead,
Kirby is ruled out, so that could mean that 4.5 million Buongiorno could also be a nailed on Italian centre back option if you're looking for cheap defenders from Italy as well.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the midfield. I think Barella is the more popular one at 7 million, but he's got only 3 assists. Then you have Fratesi, who's got 3 goals at 6.5 million. Seems a bit expensive for what they offer, right?
Yeah.
Especially because you only need them match day 1. Then you don't want them.
I think you can get more explosive picks. I think, but again, defense, and maybe you punt on a forward. But I think if I was to go there, it would probably be a double up in defense with the wing backs early on.
Yeah, and there is a punt there for a forward, because like
But
if at
even
least score 2-3
Chiesa, I
goals,
have
then
written over here as a wide forward. He's not really the talismanic number 9.
but they sort of play like a 9 and a 10. They don't have like he doesn't play as a winger. Chiesa plays as the guy behind the striker. That's his role primarily. Yeah.
So I think we should be reading the chat more. There's a lot of knowledgeable fans. So Chiesa might take pens. Actually, that's the consensus. And yeah, actually for Italy. So they generally otherwise agree.
Cool. Move
Cool.
on to
I think
Albania.
that's sure.
Right. I mean, the qualifying record is actually really good, but they had a very easy group. They had 1.5 goals per game and only 0.5 goals conceded, 4 clean sheets. But again, with this group, I don't think really we need to spend much more time on that.
I have no contribution on Albania, except I saw that they have a striker called Daku, which is actually quite an interesting name. So other than that, I have no.
Asani at 5.5, 3 goals, 2 assists. Enabler maybe.
The only thing that came out as information to me is that they've got a 4.0 million starting goalkeeper. So if you're looking to squad build, having a goalkeeper that plays 4.0 earlier than probably somebody who plays on a later date is something that could be useful.
Good shout.
That's interesting.
His name just to Berisha. Etrit Berish.
Say that again, Anna?
Etrit Berisha is his name.
Good effort.
Good homework. Broya also plays for Albania, no?
Yes.
Yes, he does.
So is he in the game? He's not in the game.
He's in the game. He started. I don't know if he's in the game or not.
A lot of players are like Anthony Gordon isn't added to the game yet.
Yeah.
He started yesterday and scored. They won 3-0, by the way, against.
If he's like 4-5 million, then
Liechtenstein.
that's Is he like 4-5 million? Anyway, you guys talk. Let me check.
I don't think it'll be 4-5. It'll probably be 5-ish. 5-6 at least. Because you have like other guys like Asani and also like I have Bajrami or something like that written over here, like 3 goals.
So while you guys are doing the homework, I want to give a shout out to our listeners that as you guys know, we are not really experts. We are figuring it out things along the way. If you have crucial bits of information that you think might be useful for us, let us know in the comments in this YouTube video, and we might use your information and make picks that might help us gain ground. So very happy to listen to you as well, because this is something we're just doing as a fun.
As well as why don't you plug our league code?
So we have a league. Make sure you join the league. We'll definitely be doing prizes. We are actually in talks to get some FPL Wire merch in place as well. So there could be something worthwhile fighting for. We'll let's agree on it right now. Zoff, we'll do prizes for the first top three in the league.
Done.
Yeah, we'll do prizes for the top 3 in the league. The league code is by the time match day, by the end of the tournament, we'll figure out what we're giving you guys, but it's worth joining. The league code is small case Y, uppercase D, A, small case SS, big case N. If you're watching YouTube, it's there on the bottom right corner, and we'll leave a link also to join the league.
Broya is not in the game. Daku is. He's 5.5.
Right. Cool.
Group prediction.
All right, I think that's Group B.
Let's do a group prediction first, because this is possibly the most interesting one. Who wants to
Pras, you go first.
Spain, Italy, Croatia, Albania.
That's what I've got as well.
Boring.
Same, but I won't be surprised if Italy go further in the tournament than Spain, just because they've got this little thing about them.
Yep.
This is a classic group in which the team that finishes second, or even third with good points, could be a good team to back later if you wildcard later. So
is that a thing? Is somebody that finishing third might qualify?
Yeah. 4 teams that finish third can qualify.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I did not know that. That's new information to me. Cool.
So,
top 3 picks from the group.
Rodri.
Rodri, then go on.
DeMarco.
Yep.
Yeah. And?
Grimaldo if he starts.
Yeah, I think so. I think Grimaldo's.
I think Grimaldo's likely to start. From what I hear, he's likely to start. Yeah. I'll go Grimaldo, DeMarco, and whichever striker starts in the friendly for Italy.
Yeah, I'll go with those 2 guys, and I'll possibly add Di Lorenzo there as a Italian double up.
He's got pretty high. I think he's got 5+ ball recoveries per game as well, if I'm not mistaken.
The only thing like Pras mentioned, there's a chance he might play centre back, which sort of might diminish his appeal. But again, this is all purely we're targeting towards match day 1.
Yeah, but worth
Exactly.
mentioning, right? If they have the highest clean sheet odds, and then you've got somebody who averages ball recoveries per game, there's a
Pick
very good
number
chance
up.
to hit 8 points in match day 1.
Exactly.
Yeah,
By the way,
yeah,
one thing on you mentioned the group record for Italy. They sacked Mancini, right? So some of that could be before.
yeah.
So
Right.
I mean, it's a different manager, Spalletti, right? So it could be, he could be back to what Italy is in tournaments.
Correct. FPL Discomfort, shout out to him, who handed us a lovely Excel sheet that I'm referring to right now. He said that one thing, a few people have mentioned is that groups B, C, E, and F all face third place finishers. So teams in those groups will definitely have something to play for in match day 3.
Yeah, sure.
Emmanuel, 5 recoveries is not 1 point, 3 recoveries is 1 point. So if he gets 6 recoveries, there's a chance. If he averages 5, there's a good chance for 6, which could be 2 additional points.
Move on to the last group we're discussing today, Group C.
Yes, and we'll start with England and we'll let Pras take the floor.
I mean, England, we don't need to say much. This is the problem. Like, it's a never-ending discussion on who should play where. I mean, yesterday's friendly Trent was incredible, but his goal actually came when he moved to right back. So I think, look, you have to have Kane with England. As soon as he came on yesterday after Watkins was subbed off, it changed completely. Like the involvement, the attacking threat, the energy. Even though Watkins is great, Kane was something else. And then yesterday you had a great show by Gallagher. I think he's put his hand up as the third midfielder. Like a lot of people from England are talking about who plays alongside Rice and Bellingham. And I think it'll be Gallagher, because of his work rate, very much like Henderson. So, there are calls for like Trent to play there, Menu to play there, even this Wharton to play there. But I think Gallagher will play there. So back four is very settled. I think it's going to be Trippier on the left unless Shaw is fit. Then you'll have Walker on the right, and centre back will be Stones and Maguire and Pickford in goal. So there is value in England defence at 5 million Maguire, 5 million Pickford. Trippier is too expensive. And then in midfield, like I mentioned, I think
Maguire averages 5.25 ball recoveries a game.
5
and he
million.
scores every other
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Maguire's a good pick.
Maguire is a no-brainer pick, to be honest. Like, given the clean sheet odds, given his attacking threat, price. Then I think in attack, it's Kane, Foden on the left, Saka on the right, Bellingham as the 10. And if he wants to get a little bit creative or, then Foden could play there. Bellingham plays instead of Gallagher, which I doubt happens. It's too attacking. Then you could have a spot on the left for a Grealish or a Gordon as well. But I think the picks there are Bellingham, who is too expensive, I think. Kane.
9.5 million.
Correct. Saka. Foden for 9 million again feels expensive, and Saka is 8.5 because they will pretty much have the same output from either side of the wing. And then Maguire or Pickford. That's your picks from England, basically.
Pickford 5 million
just
seems
wanted to-
decent to me as a second keeper, especially if you can find a 4 million guy to balance it out. But again, I think he's made 5 saves in total in 8 qualifying matches.
I just want to add, I think England is a great opportunity for you to differentiate yourself. Because one thing about Serbia, everything that they play Serbia in match day 1, is that they are terrible defensively, absolutely terrible defensively. Now, most people that are going to be playing with sort of socks on are going to be going for Maguire, Pickford, and just Kane. Now, Kane is nailed on in this team. I think there's an opportunity for an aggressive match day 1 play to double up or even triple up on England attack, because Serbia is one of the weakest and worst defenses in this tournament. So there's a chance to gain some points there. Not many people are going to have Foden. Not many people are going to have Bellingham and are going to assume that Bellingham is really expensive. So there is a little opportunity for you to differentiate if you think England can plunder 4 or 5 goals past a very weak Serbian team. Also, ex-England could come into play. The thing about Serbia is that they've got Tadic, Mitrovic, and Milinkovic-Savic as their front three, which is pretty good. And England's weakness, if anything, is their defense. Are they capable of scoring 1 goal? I think generally, if you look at this front three and if you look at England's, there's a chance something like that could happen. So if you want to play creatively, aggressively, there's opportunity. I just wanted to mention that.
An England
It's just
triple
the
up seems
Southend
essential,
factor.
right? I think you see over here just the odds, even for group stage goals and clean sheets are right on top. So a triple up just seems like a no-brainer.
Correct. But you're right, LR. It's about which triple up. I think double defense feels not great, even though actually it's the Southgate factor, man. Southgate isn't that manager. He's not Pep. We are not going to go for a fourth goal if we're 3-0 up. He'll probably take Bellingham off because he played the Champions League. It's that mentality isn't there. It's not a Man City mentality or a Liverpool
But
mentality.
in the World Cup, you all put 3-4 past a lot of opposition, if I
No,
remember
only
correctly.
Panama. Like usually England is a 2-0 team. 2-0, 2-1 kind of team. 2-0 more
Because
like.
there's sort of control.
Yeah.
What do you got,
Yeah.
Like you can see now, he has the option of playing Bellingham, Rice, and Foden in the middle, right? He will not do that. Of course, I mean, I'm not suggesting he should, but I'm saying a manager could. You could have basically a very attacking team because attacking talent is immense at England, but it won't happen.
Even defensive midfield, like Wharton apparently did really well. I was reading Andy Lestock FPL's tweet, and he did really well, and that pushes Rice forward as a 8. That gives a lot of balance.
Yeah.
Because I remember last time it was the guy who's failed at City. What's his name? Calvin Phillips and Rice running the show. So that was a defensive midfielder.
And
When it comes
Henderson,
to
like he always is very packed.
Yeah. I just want to talk to you guys about expected minutes. Saka had decent output in the Euros. He got 3 goals, 4 assists. Foden just got 2 assists. But now that they seem to have settled into this front six, where I think everybody thinks it's going to be Kane, Saka, Bellingham, and Foden, who's most at threat? Genuinely, I think the biggest player knocking on the door is Cole Palmer. Genuinely, I think he's the biggest player knocking on the door. He plays in the same position as Saka. Do you think if Saka has a week 55, 60 minutes, his X minutes are a threat?
They are.
Yeah,
I think more so, especially in the third game, and also we know Saka comes off hobbling every game. Arteta plays him through everything. I don't think Saka is still 100% fit.
I agree. I mean, the problem is Kane sweeps all the goals, like a lot of the goals, which actually makes England midfielders quite expensive for that price.
Correct.
Like if you compare to other like a Bruno or a penalty taking midfielder, these guys are okay. So I think Saka is under threat, not as a start, but 60, 70 minute subs. I think Foden is under threat from Grealish or Gordon, depending on game state. If you're winning, then Grealish. If you're losing, then Gordon. That kind of thing will happen all the time. Bellingham is the upside pick, but Bellingham for England is not the Bellingham for Real Madrid, a bit like Saka for Arsenal versus Saka for England, a bit like Foden for Man City versus Foden for England. But Bellingham has that upside where you can see like a scenario where Bellingham scores 6-7 goals in the tournament and becomes like this guy of winning Ballon d'Or.
Who's announcing himself though? He's clutch.
You can see that, but he's not shown that. There is no evidence we've seen in qualifying where he's done that. Because in Real Madrid, he has no striker ahead of him, right?
Split forwards, right?
Wide
They
forward,
split and he
exactly.
comes thing.
Here you have Kane, who takes up a lot of those spaces.
The only thing I want to say is that let's say if Bellingham scores a goal and assist in game 1, match day 1. Match day 1 is the only time you're probably going to have Bellingham's ownership under 50% if he gets a return. Like that's the thing. Like I think match day 1 in terms of opportunities to jump on differentials which are well thought, England attackers, namely Foden and Bellingham, fit that criteria for me.
Want to make a mention for Emmanuel from the chat. He mentioned that Guehi might play match day 1 because Maguire is a doubt. So that's something we need to watch out for in the friendlies.
Yeah, to watch out for. And yes, we did score some goals against Iran and Panama. But I mean, I just think this opposition is better. I mean, Euros tend to be actually closer games than the World Cup because World Cup has weaker teams, ironically, than the Euros. A point you made, LR. But actually, these teams are good teams.
Yeah. But Serbia defensively, man, like I was reading the preview for all these Serbian fans. They're like, oh, we have the worst defense. Like
1.3 goals conceded per game in qualifying.
I don't know if it was this team, this team or Slovenia, where they said that they have only one defender from that entire team, which plays in the top 5 leagues in Europe. Like that is the level of the defense of this team, So wanted to mention there's opportunity where you're hunting brace potential. And this seems like a fixture where you could go. The odds seem to agree for match day 1.
Indeed.
That's interesting. I didn't know that stat about the top. I think it must be Slovenia. I can't imagine that being Serbia. But who should we talk about first? Let's talk about the Serbians first.
Sure.
So they have 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses in qualifying, 1.8 goals per game, and as I mentioned, 1.3 goals conceded. Now, I think the midfield we're probably not going to look at. The defense also, we have Mladenovic, who's 3 assists in 6 games, but only 1.3 ball recoveries for 5 million. But Mitrovic and Blahovic at 7.5 million, potentially of interest, right? Because everything goes through them.
And they might play two strikers also. We don't know,
Yeah.
but generally one of them plays. And if that's the case, Mitrovic plays. He's like the god in Serbian football. He's like their greatest GOAT legend, scored the most goals, etc.
But Vlahovic is the better striker now that
Correct.
Mitrovic is playing in Saudi Arabia. It's a little bit tricky to call actually, which makes both of them redundant because whoever starts is on pens.
Correct.
Mitrovic is likely to start from what I know. It's very unlikely that if Vlahovic starts, it will be next to Mitrovic, not in spite of, is what I've read and heard. And he was the second highest goal scorer in the Saudi League. I think he's got 28 goals. So he's in good goal scoring. Yes, obviously league and opposition and all that, but still no mean feat scoring 28 goals in a league.
But I don't see any option here.
Yeah, I
to
don't
be
think
honest.
there's many really options worth discussing from Serbia otherwise.
Yeah.
Move on to Denmark.
Let's talk about Denmark. I'm interested in talking about Denmark, and there were some interesting stats. Zoff, I don't read out the numbers. I want to pull out some data that I read.
7 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses in qualifying, which is quite decent. But in terms of the numbers, 1.9 goals per game, 1 goal conceded per match. They have the hero from, I think, the previous tournament, Mahler, at 5.5 million. He got 2 goals, 1 assist in qualifying. But again, I've heard that age is also, he's not the same player that he once was. Christensen is 5 million. Just have
Christensen
a look
with a CH, because there are two Christensens.
Okay, yeah, the Chelsea Christensen.
Yes.
So I think let's have a look at the group stage predicted clean sheets. Denmark are about in the middle, with the best one being the right first up. So the interest to us in match day 1, 44%
Correct.
is decent.
44% is, I think, 6th or 7th best.
Yeah, that's about like close to Belgium, who are 46, higher than France, for example.
Exactly.
Their defense, I don't know why more people aren't looking because their actually qualifying form has been very poor.
Exactly.
But I actually, the other Christensen with a K is only 4.5
And
plays on the other side as Mihaly.
Yeah. Is it Mihaly?
Oh, it's Mahile, whatever. Okay.
I don't know. No, I don't know if you knew. I don't know if you knew.
No, I don't know. It's Mahile.
These days.
Yeah. But let me read out some cool data. This is, I want to give a shout out to, okay, lost him. At the rate EYTEXI, 8XE, he's actually doing some really cool Euros content on Twitter as well. Some interesting data. He said that Mele is just like an attacker. He averages 2 goal attempts a game. Now, what happened is that the last Euros, he was this popular god pick. Some people even captained him, and then he got a goal and a clean sheet. And now what happened is that from 4.5 million, he's become like a 5.5 million pick. Now, I think there's like an anti-price bias because somebody like us who were entering this tournament for the first time, we didn't play last year. We're like, okay, this guy seems good. But because people are used to buying him at 4.5 million, they're not looking at him at 5.5 million. But he's a genuine attacking wing back who's had perhaps a 1 million price rise. He's aging and he's not had a very good domestic season. I still think he's an attractive pick, especially match day 1, because not many people are looking at him as a differential. So I think Denmark is a team to look at because they play Slovenia in match day 1, right? It's an interesting fixture for clean sheets, in my opinion. I think 44% for clean sheet odds are pretty interesting. Want to mention this data that was quite important. They were in the same group as Slovenia in the group stages. And in the first game, they tied 1-1. In the second game, they won 2-1. But the interesting bit is Denmark recorded an XG of 3.72 versus Slovenia's XG of 0.46 over these 2 games. So they definitely outplayed the opposition. So there is opportunity here. And I'm looking at Mele and Christensen or one of them as differentials where everybody is not considering. And Rasmus, my boy Rasmus, is definitely in consideration for that third striker spot.
Very much so.
I'm sort of giving out my strategy because I want to go cheap striker because I see expensive England midfielder as an opportunity early days. So
good
that's
numbers.
Sort of the thing.
7 goals, 1 assist in qualifying. So very much a talisman.
And top 4 shots taken in qualifying as well. He had 23 shots. Wind, who's 7 million, who's the second striker, had 18 shots. And Mele had 16 shots. Third highest shot taker in that team. In qualifying.
5.5 just feels high though. I mean, I don't know. I think he's great, but I just feel that in our head he's even better because of that 4.5 effect you mentioned, where he actually did so much as a 4.5 defender. But look, I don't hate it, but for 4.5, I like Christensen as well. Yeah. You get that clean sheet threat and some attacking threat.
This is where, again, chip strategy comes into mind. Because the best clean sheet fixture out of the 3 in this group is against Slovenia. So
Correct.
I'm willing to differentiate and take a chance on this high upside pick where I'm trying to fluke a goal plus a clean sheet, right? So that's what I'm trying to do because I know that I'm not going to be associated with this pick in match day 2 and 3.
Absolutely.
Like that's the
good example. But just to warn, Slovenia not too bad. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if their clean sheet odds are high, but Slovenia are not that bad. They beat Portugal and even US recently, and then they drew against Malta, like the worst team. So it's like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of team where you don't know what you get, but it's not like a no-brainer. So just want to say, like, it could be easily a one-all game as well.
Good qualifying record for Slovenia. 7 win, 1 draw, 2 losses. I was quite surprised to see that.
that's pretty good.
I think move on to Denmark to Slovenia. Finish up there.
Yeah, I mean, Eriksen is generally the popular pick when it comes to Denmark, but I've just seen him for United too much to see
At
how
7 million
far
when you
he's
get
go-
like Soboslai and people who are legit, like, goal threat and stuff, doesn't seem like it worth
He
it.
can't
for
last more
Yeah.
than 65 minutes now anyway.
Yeah, but he's
His
a
heart-
different player for Denmark, though.
As I said on the above average spot, his heart is not in it anymore.
Right. Cool.
Slovenia. Yeah, so they have 2 picks that caught my interest. One, you have a budget defender at 5 million, Konikanovic, 4 ball recoveries, 1 goal, 2 assists. And the perhaps most interesting pick is Sheridan, who's got at just 5 million, 1 goal and 3 assists in qualifying, 3.7 ball recoveries, takes all their set pieces. And then you have Sesko at 7 million, who's being attracted by a lot of Premier League clubs now, 5 goals and 2 assists. But the Sheridan
This
at
is
5
a
million
class
one.
act.
The Sheridan at 5 million is potentially your enabler.
I don't have much to contribute about Slovenia. That's all.
I think
No,
yeah,
so
I
Cherin
think-
actually is interesting. I mean, I think potentially better than Jorginho if you wanted like somebody with attacking threat as well.
yes.
So at 5 million, we like our budget players.
You need one
Sesko
budget guy,
again.
right?
Yeah. So Sesko 7 million is a little bit more expensive than you would want, but other than that, yeah, it's a decent team like we talked about. So not a bad shout if you wanted to go for Cherin.
Cool. Group standings.
England obviously is coming home.
Of course.
The second part is obviously it's interesting, right? You should say it between Serbia and Denmark. I think I'd give it to Serbia still. But it's quite close. I think England, Serbia, Denmark, Slovenia in that order.
I'll go England, Denmark, Serbia, Slovenia.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I'm quite bullish on Denmark.
We've got 11 FI in the
they-
chat as well, and a lot of guys who've actually contributed to the tables are in the chat. It's good to see.
Thank you for all your
Thanks,
help, guys.
Lil
Because again,
FI.
we've all just been learning off you guys because ultimately we are quite noobs when it comes to this.
Yeah, man. But we'll be experts in a couple of weeks. Absolutely. Right. Top picks from this group outside of Harry Kane, because Harry Kane is a must have. We are all agreeing to that. Please don't play without Harry Kane. Go on.
It's tough. I think in England, I think probably I'd go for another defensive option because again, the attack seems a bit of a minefield to me. I don't know who to pick really over there, so I'd probably go for Pickford as a pick over there. Then from Serbia, Mitrovic. Denmark, maybe like who did we talk about? Male.
Okay.
I think I'll go for Saka just because of price. I think he's a very good price, 8.5, and Maguire as my 2 picks. If Maguire is fit, by the way, of course, if he's starting, then
If Maguire's fit, then he's at 5 million. I'd have him over Pickford easily.
otherwise, yeah, we'll have to see which defender to get. That actually might make things interesting if Maguire isn't fit on how people go for their England
I mean, you
defense.
could go for Gehi match day 1, and then again, if you're doing the whole chip strategy thing, just discard him after.
True. But we may not know, right? Like he may.
Yeah.
I mean, if he
he
starts
may
in
be
the
fit, but
friendlies,
we
you look
don't
at the
know.
last friendly, judge from that. We'll know next week.
Correct. So yeah, we'll talk about that stuff again next week. But I think the third pick, there is no third pick for me. Like there's no clear third pick. Maybe a Denmark defender.
Give
would
your
be
boy
the third
Rasmus a shout.
Yeah, actually, Rasmus as well.
Yeah.
I just like Lukaku as my third striker too much.
Striker.
But we'll talk
Okay.
about Lukaku next week, obviously. But yeah,
Cool.
if there were 4 striker slots, then yeah, I like Højlund as well.
Holland or Italy striker? Where would you punt? Match day 1?
Match day 1, if it's match day 1 only, then Italy striker. If you
Italy
want a
striker.
stable guy, then maybe, especially if you're playing limitless when Denmark plays England, then Højlund is great.
Alright.
Chip does matter in terms of how you're thinking about picks.
Actually, yeah, so good we cover that at the top, right? Because again, like you said, it determines your selection a lot.
Let me do my top 3 picks. I want to shout
course.
out.
Go ahead.
I want to number one, Phil Foden, differential in goal scoring form this season. Not many people are looking there because he's expensive. Number two, Jude Bellingham, clutch player. Again, not many people are looking because he's expensive. And Serbia are apparently shit in defense. And number three, Mele. Those are three I'll go with.
Very 3 LR picks.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool. Let's wrap
Cool.
up.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. I really enjoyed doing this because it's sort of refreshing things in your head as well, right? While you're talking about the Euros, etc. as well.
And
So
it's
it's
not
been
that
fun.
hard. People think it's because of the whole different days, match days. It's not. It's not as hardcore as Sky Fantasy, where you have to pick a captain for each day. It's a bit different, right? You can only ultimately lose the captain points from the previous day.
I think it's a good idea, Zoff. If you can just move to match day one, let's just illustrate what people need to do. Right, this is the first one. So essentially, you need to have one player from Germany on 14 June as a captain for sure. On 15 June, Hungary play Switzerland and Spain play Croatia and Italy play Albania. So you have a decent mix of players, and then you have one captain from either Hungary, Spain, or Italy. On 16th June, which is the third day in match day one, you have Poland versus Netherlands, Slovenia versus Denmark, and Serbia versus England. On 17 June, you have Belgium versus Slovakia and Austria versus France. That's one of my biggest problems with having Mbappe and Lukaku, because you're going to captain only one of them.
It's true, but then if you're covering each of the days, then it's not really a problem, right? If you're covering a Germany player, if you're covering an Italian or a Spanish player, then it's not too bad because you can still then England, then Belgium, actually, or Mbappe. Now, actually, that's an interesting one. It took me some time to realize this, that you can't, in the previous version of this game, not the UEFA one, but the World Cup game, you could change a captain even in the same day based on when the next kickoff happens. You can't do that here. You have to have like a deadline for each day.
That's why I stressed on it, because it was something I had presumed as well.
Yeah.
And then I read it just before recording that video. I was like, okay, this is a crucial bit of information that needs to go out there as well. So basically, you need to make sure that you have 5 marquee players on each day. And then you make sure that you have a decent enough bench that plays on the 17th and the 18th, so that if your players that don't perform 14th to 16th, you can switch them. And the sort of larger point thinking is that you can take more risks 14th to 16th. You can play safer 17th and 18th when it comes to the Rodri style picks or your captaincies.
Anything else, guys?
And this in-game management is only specific to match day one. I think that's about it. That's it. I think we've done an elaborate job of covering this. It's been a pleasure talking to you, boys, and we'll probably do the next pod early next week. I think probably Tuesday next week. I think is what we'll probably.
Hopefully, should have my internet up and running by then.
Yeah, cool. We'll definitely do a pod before the next Euros. So before the 14th, expect to see us.
All right, guys. I think we'll discuss a Twitter template team also next week. We have some points.
Yeah, let's do that next week.
And do you guys want to do a like, subscribe, plug? We haven't done that all pod.
Yeah. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Pras' glasses are coming off. A lot of other things will come off after. See you guys next week.
Incredible.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Doorbell.